Welcome into the first edition of Trifecta Soccer Talk, the Week 1 recap of the first week of Major League Soccer action for the New England Revolution on Saturday night in Portland at Providence Park. The New England Revolution came away with a 2-2 draw on a rainy and dreary night. They had two consecutive one-goal leads throughout the match, but unfortunately some really great goals by the Portland Timbers made it so the Revolution only came away with a point, but a point on the road to open the season in Major League Soccer is a good result for the Revolution, especially considering they hadn't played a competitive game in over 3 months, and they had their CONCACAF Champions League plans dashed in terms of their preseason preparation for this opening match against Portland. The Revolution have now had 5 consecutive meetings with Portland end in a draw, and in fact, the last meeting between the two teams resulted in a 2-2 draw in 2019. On top of that, this marks back-to-back seasons in which the Revolution opened up the season with a 2-2 draw. Last year, they did it against the Chicago Fire at Soldier Field in Chicago, and they ended up going on to set the single-season point records in Major League Soccer. So first, we're going to get to some highlights, then we're going to get to some post-game reaction, then some high-level analysis in terms of what we saw in the first week of action for the New England Revolution.
That's a recipe for disaster.
Heels ensuing corner. To the deflection, it's in off the underside of the bar. That bounced it off someone. It's Brandon By celebrating the goal.
I mean, look at that. On the corner of the 6-yard box, beating 2 defenders to this ball. Van Rankin being one of them.
Chimichara. Able to get it away from Moreno. Comes back into the traffic. What a ball it is. A spree.
Moreno creating space. 3 defenders around him. Little skips past the first challenge from Leggett. That touch there from a...
Here's McNamara now. Jones on the run. Jones across Leggett. Oh, it's the Revs back in front. Barely a minute after the Timber.
To get to the 6-yard box and watch. He just peels off. He recognizes where the space is now. Adjusts his body. Opens up.
Hands it off for Van Rankin. Working on Jones. Van Rankin's crossing his goal, couldn't get to it. How about the overhead for a tying goal by Jimmy Chara?
And both of those goals by Portland were simply fantastic. And on the Revolution side, the first goal scored by Brandon By off the Carlos Heel corner kick. It was a great header. It was a great ball in from Heel. Great 1-2. It was By's 6th career goal. And then if you look at the goal for the Revolution, that immediately followed the goal by Portland. It was also a pretty nice goal. Tommy McNamara was able to spring DeJuan Jones loose on the left side, and Jones got a pretty good ball into Sebastian Leggett, who took it on the first touch. It was a really impressive first touch from Sebastian Leggett, and you could tell that goal meant something for him, especially since it was the first with the Revolution, and also he's had some, issues performing on the field the last couple of years with the LA Galaxy, and you could really tell when he scored that goal that it meant a lot to him. It was an interesting game. The Revolution hadn't really played a competitive match for over 3 months, like I said earlier, and the fact that they were able to come out, play competitive, and in my opinion, it was the best match in Major League Soccer for day one. It was the only match that had both teams score more than 1 goal out of 9 matches that were played, so it probably was the best match. It might be the match of the weekend. Both teams were high intensity. They weren't really sluggish. It was a wide open game, back and forth. You couldn't really tell it was an early season soccer match, and it certainly was a win for Major League Soccer. So we're going to hear from Revolution Sporting Director and Head Coach Bruce Arena on what he thought of the match and really how their preseason plans were impacted by the CONCACAF Champions League cancellation with Cavalli.
Well, I think we did well given the circumstances. Not having any real games before this hurt us a little bit. Our whole preseason schedule was based around the CCL competition. So losing those 2 matches set us back a little bit. So I'm happy to see that, we were able to give a pretty good effort today and get a result on the road.
Yeah, the Revolution had those 2 CONCACAF Champions League matches canceled. It would have been against a lower opponent, but it would have been on national television. It would have been a tournament, essentially must-win games at home. Would have been a great experience for them to get heading into the season. And having those plans canceled, they had to scramble. So they had two USL Championship level matches that they were able to get on the books, which is pretty impressive logistical work on their side to get those matches on, just so they could get some type of match fitness. And the fact that they were able to play as well as they did against Portland was a good sign. There were certainly some issues defensively with communication. Traditionally, they had some issues. You also saw Brandon Bai was holding Portland onside a couple of times, including on that Asprella goal. Brandon Bai was playing slightly behind his line, which allowed that run to occur. And yeah, it was a great play, great recognition by Portland, and great execution. But if Brandon Bai had been in line with the rest of his defenders, that would have been an offside, or it would never have even happened. Bai also had another moment later in the game where it was ruled offside. It was Yimi Chara. It looked like it was a mile offside to show the replay, and Bai again was slightly behind. That time was a little bit worse, but behind his back line, which was concerning and something you cannot be doing, and something they're going to have to clean up. Also, Omar Gonzalez, I've been ragging on him. I think a lot of people have been ragging on him, probably undeservedly. Last year with Toronto FC, he didn't look great, and he hasn't really looked great with the Revolution, but I thought against Portland he was okay. He had a couple moments early on in the game where he's very suspect defensively, but I thought moving the ball forward, building out of the back, he looked good. Using his head and in the attacking third also, he looked okay. He definitely different than what Henry Kessler or John Bill gives you, and certainly has the veteran experience to go along with it. Henry Kessler is dealing with an injury. So is goalkeeper Matt Turner as well. But it'll be interesting to see what they do at center back specifically. If Omar Gonzalez is going to be playing over Henry Kessler, where's John Bell fit in all this? Will they potentially go 3 center backs and change their formation altogether? It'll be very interesting to see what they do there. In terms of goalkeeper, we have to talk about Earl Edwards Jr. He had 3 saves. It was his first start since 2018. He did allow 2 goals conceded, but both those goals weren't his fault. That first goal was really Brandon Bai's fault, and really excellent play actually by Portland. And then that second goal was the bicycle kick by Chara. You can't really defend that. He did make a couple of really great saves, including the one I'm going to show later. But certainly a great story for Earl Edwards Jr. He played with Revs 2 last year, and early on with his Revs 2 tenure, you could tell he was sort of adjusting to the system, to the organization, and he improved as the season went on. And then preseason, he played really well too. So it wasn't really surprising to see him get the first crack here. And with Matt Turner departing to Arsenal this summer, Earl Edwards Jr. could be a candidate to replace him. Now, it could also be Brad Knight, and it could be Jacob Jackson, it could be Ethan Horthrop, who, by Doug McIntyre of Fox Sports, could be a target for the Revolution. So there's a lot of options, but it was nice to see Earl Edwards Jr. put in the work and get back on the field. It reminded me a lot of Cody Cropper a couple years back when he got his first start after a long time and played pretty well too. So it'll be interesting to see what Edwards Jr. goes from here. We're going to go to his highlights, and then we're going to hear a little bit from him coming up.
Enough quality in the final third. They've gotten themselves into some good opportunities in transition, working into these types of areas, but without the shot.
Here's a Spria, saved by Edwards, and it covers up the rebound.
And almost on cue.
As long as I'm called upon, I'll be ready when I'm called upon. So we'll see how it goes.
That was Edwards Jr. after the game. He was asked by Sam Minton of the Bent Musket, about the future going forward. How is he going to hold on to the starting job? And he said he's called upon, he's up for it. Pretty honest answer from Earl Edwards Jr. Obviously, when Matt Turner returns, it's Matt Turner's job, and it will be until he departs. And after that, it's going to be up in the air. So I think there's going to be some opportunities with some congestion in the schedule, even when Matt does return, to have some rotation. It could be Earl Edwards Jr., it could be Jacob Jackson, it could be Brad Knighton, or maybe they make a move prior to that summer transfer window and start the plan for that. So it'd be interesting to see where they go from here with the goalkeeper position. I think Revs fans have been fortunate the last couple of years to have a goalkeeper like Matt Turner, but you'd have options within the organization, and of course, Bruce Arena could go out and get another option. And I think realistically, while I think Earl Edwards Jr. has a potential to be a starting goalkeeper in Major League Soccer consistently, I think if you're the Revolution and you're trying to have a window of winning an MLS Cup, and ideally it's probably this year, you don't know about beyond that, you have to make sure every position on your field is set up for success. And would you rather have Earl Edwards Jr. or Jacob Jackson or Brad Knight, or would you rather go get a potential, franchise goalkeeper? It may put you in a better position to win now, and maybe it's more of a sure thing. So, that's another one of these questions with this team. Another thing that we saw last night was Jose Altidore got in the game. He came in for Gustavo Bo. The game played alongside Adam Buxa and Carlos Heel. I thought he looked okay, but really was a non-factor because the team really failed to really get forward. They tried to get the ball to him a couple times. I know Brandon Bai had a cross that got deflected on his way to Jose Altidore in the box. So not enough out of Jose to really see where he's at. But he was working pretty hard defensively, tracking back and doing his job on that regard. So no real update on him. Sebastian Lletget I thought was pretty good in his Revolution debut. Obviously, he had the goal, but really good from Sebastian. And I think he showed why the Revolution targeted him. And I think you can start to see why he may be a better fit for the system than Tejan Buchanan. I would like to see Sebastian get a little bit more involved. His touches were a little bit low. I think it was 36 touches in 79 minutes or something around that. Would like to see that a little bit higher. But overall, a really good start by him. Other standouts for me was Carlos Heel. He's simply just an incredible athlete, incredible player. Just sees things a step ahead than anybody else. We all know that. He's reigning MVP, but there was one ball he took. I think it was Gustavo Bo had a big switch over to Heel on the right side, and Heel was able to take it down really soft as a pillow. To be able to get that ball and that first touch was just incredible. So he's just a difference maker, and as long as he's healthy and he's on the field, this Revolution team's going to do fine. I thought last night you probably want a little bit more out of Adam Buxa and Gustavo Bo. Bo was okay, but for the most part, wasn't the biggest factor in that game. And Adam Buxa probably spent more time on the ground than he did actually getting shots off. He was definitely targeted by Portland. They were very physical with him, and he was physical back, and he could have been carded a couple times. And he really was a non-factor. Didn't get enough off. It wasn't that he was just missing the net. He just really wasn't getting his chances. And you need to get him to get his chances, especially if he wants to be transferred this summer. You need a little bit more out of Adam Buxa going forward. So that's it here for Trifecta Soccer Talk. This was week 1 of recapping the New England Revolution. The show will continue throughout the season. We'll continue to improve, to update, to make changes, to make additions. But we'll be recapping some major storylines as well if they come up throughout the week. But the Revolution will be back next Saturday when they host FC Dallas at Gillette Stadium at 1:30 p.m. This will be the first home game of the 2022 Major League Soccer season and the first home game since their playoff loss against NYCFC last year. We'll get some more detail on FC Dallas. We'll do a preview prior to the match, likely coming out on Friday, but just high level, that's a talented team with Ferreira, and now you have Paul Arriola as well. So very talented team in FC Dallas, and that's certainly going to be a big test for the Revolution coming in next Saturday. Thanks for joining us. Make sure to follow me on Twitter at Tanner Rebello. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, and visit TrifectaNetworkSports.com for the very latest in New England Revolution news, recaps, and analysis.